Here's another question someone sent to me, and I hope it helps, even though their design was a little different than this one here. But they're having a problem. They have a rock wall, and they're trying to frame something in. Looks like they might have removed a window, but they're trying to frame something in to make it weatherproof. And they put the framing, looks like flush with the exterior of the wall, and would look something like this without these two boards here. I put these in for just in case you need a little extra nailing. If you put some trim around it like I'm about to show you, something like this will give you a little more nailing for the siding or the plywood that you're going to put in. So let's go ahead and put some paper in here, some type of building paper. And after you put the paper in, wouldn't be a bad idea to caulk it. Wouldn't be a bad idea to put some caulking around the perimeter on the wall framing studs before you put the paper on also, but I'll leave that up to you. It's almost like when you're in a situation like this, you need to seal as much of it as you possibly can in the hopes of squishing everything into the cracks and gaps so no water will get into it. Hope that helps. The next thing you would do would be to build a frame around it. And again, remember the wood framing is on the outside. So when we put our paper on and our trim on, it should be even with it. And you might need to notch the trim. If it's a rock wall, you might need to notch some of the wood trim so that it is flat and not beveled or angled also. Put the trim over the paper, and before you put the trim in, make sure that you put some caulking around the perimeter so that when you put the trim in, it will squish it in also. Probably start with the bottom. Now the bottom is going to go down a little bit also. We'll see that in a little bit here. And then put a piece of plywood in there. And if you want, leave a 1/4 inch gap around the perimeter of the plywood, and then you could caulk all the way around that also. The bottom board will go on first, and then of course you can put more caulking. Do not caulk the bottom underneath the board. You can caulk all the inside, the sides, and the top. Just do not caulk the bottom. And I'll explain why here in a sec. Let's go to a section view of it. Go to the bottom. Now if we seal the area here, we're going to be fine. Water that comes off of here will go down. But if we seal this gap in here and any water gets behind here, it's not going to have anywhere to go. So we're not worried about water coming up and into here. I guess if you lived in a flood area you would, but that would be the least of your problems, I would imagine. But you are going to be worried about water when it rains coming down. So any water that gets trapped, give it a place to run out of. And at the top, you need to seal the heck out of this thing. I mean, seal the board at the top. And you can always put a piece of metal up here too. Roofers do it a lot, I see, and when they're up against rock walls like this. And don't be afraid to, put some caulking, tar, something, anything up against the rock and squash that piece of metal in there so that it sticks and doesn't drain. So I see that a lot. And if you have a problem with that or you're trying to figure out what I'm talking about, feel free to leave a comment in the comment area and maybe I'll make a video on that also. But I'll make a note to make one on that in the future. Now here's my second choice. And this would be if you hadn't built anything yet, would be better to build some type of a picture frame around it or kind of a window looking thing. You know, move the wall back if you possibly can. I understand there are situations where you will not be able to do this. You'll have to do it the other way. But what this does is gives you a little more opportunity to seal something. And when I say that, for the most part, it's just going to give you more of an opportunity to have the water drain off of the bottom. And of course, another option. The next step will be to install some type of barrier here, plywood. And again, you can put the building paper on the wall framing studs before you put the plywood on. You could always put the paper on after, depending upon what you're doing. So the paper could go behind the plywood or in front of it, building paper. And make sure that it is a little shorter, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. Why? So that we can put some type of a sealant in there to add another barrier to prevent water or moisture from entering the area. Next step would be to install some type of a frame. This would be, like I said, a window frame. Make sure that there's at least, I would like to say, 1/4 of an inch space around the perimeter here. And then of course you will use little spacer blocks or wedges to keep it away. So you can have little blocks, you know, in between the rock or the block and the jamb. It's just not a good idea to put it right up against it. If moisture is a problem, moisture can come through the surface of the concrete or the rock, the mortar, and of course affect the wood. But if you do frame it tight, I don't think that's going to be too big of a problem, as long as moisture isn't a problem in your area. You live in a wetter climate, do it, keep the gap in there, and fill it with caulking. I've seen people fill this with caulking and set it in there and leave it alone. They just let the caulking dry and the window frame kind of holds itself in. I'm not a big fan of that. I like to see it anchored a little more securely. There's the gap, there's the caulking, and again the gap at the top. And before you put the trim on, you're going to put some trim around the window. Make sure that this is all filled with caulking and that you have caulking around here so that when you do put the trim on, it's going to squish up against the caulking and create a nice seal around here. You can, if you want, I know it's not going to work out good for the sides. If you were to just run a bead of caulking down here or some type of a sealant, then I have bad luck with it. You know, you might be better at it than me, but definitely put something on the top. And again, you could always put some type of a piece of metal up here or shaped metal up here and then seal that again for extra protection. So anyway, that is it for this video. I hope it helps. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave the comments in the comment area or email them to me. Remember these methods, I'm just kind of throwing them out there. There are other methods that work, but this individual that I made the video for looks like he's working with an old building and a situation that he might not be able to do any other way. Might have some problems with it. So if you're building something like this from new construction, then this video might not help you at all. Go use the new and approved methods for installing panels for siding or something like this in a block wall area like that. So anyway, again, hope it helps. And if it does, hit the old thumbs up button. Let me know you like the videos.